Hello everyone, DonTheCrown here, and we have a lot of information now about the upcoming season in Torchlight Infinite. I gotta say, it is looking amazing. They did so much stuff for this season. It is absolutely incredible. We didn't get a preseason event, which is kind of like the mid-season second season. And it's really obvious that they took a lot of time, put in a lot of effort into this season's mechanic and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we're just going to hop into all the information. It's definitely a game where they're not afraid to really shake stuff up from season to season, and it's really apparent right off the bat. So the very first thing we have is kind of like what the seasonal mechanics is going to be. Basically, as you go into the map, you're going to kind of interact with an NPC. You're going to pick a mission for you to do in the map, and then at the end of the map, you kind of get a whole bunch of loot, supposedly. And they're kind of just showing a whole bunch of loot explosions in this video. And there's a whole passive tree to unlock stuff. And it seems to kind of have multiple different stages to kind of like help you out in terms of giving you power earlier on in the game. And then later on, kind of like makes the whole mechanic more rewarding, but harder to complete. And so there's a whole bunch of different stuff going on with that. And I'll have probably a whole video talking about this particular mechanic in detail, kind of like how to min-max it. So keep an eye out for that once the season actually goes live. We're also getting a brand new hero trait here. And so it's a new gunner type of boy. And he's kind of a combination of basically his hero power switches him from being multi-target to single target. And so when he's in a multi-target mode, he's moving faster. And when he's single target, the like area of effect that his projectiles are going is smaller. So you can overlap more on bosses, which is pretty cool. Now there's a whole bunch of other, changes to like the game in general. So this last season we had Mistville. Mistville was kind of like so popular. I personally really loved it, loved running it, loved just making tons of money. And so they're making it a little bit easier for you to get activation mediums now. So before, only on day 15 would you be guaranteed to get one, and now supposedly you're getting one on day 9 and on day 15. And days 11 and 13 are going to be 50-50 to get these, which means that it's going to be a lot easier to get these activation mediums. We kind of looked at some of the Chinese patch notes. The English patch notes aren't out yet. We looked at the Chinese patch notes, and it might be that on day 9, you're likely to get a slightly worse one, whereas you need to go to day 15 to get the real big reward. But we'll have to see kind of like what goes on later on. And then all of the old stuff and food supposedly is also being reworked, which I'll have to do a whole video talking about that. Any sort of changes to how the gameplay is going to be. Hopefully they didn't nerf our cool strategies too much. Another really important thing is that resistances are now going to be a lot easier to get. So this last season they made resistances harder to get, but they kind of like lowered down the resistance cap, if you would. And they just like made things a lot better. So the rolls for resistances are all going to be improved. So basically like on tier 4, the like old top end is now the bottom end for tier 4. So this is going to be overall a lot easier. Also, the elemental resistance aura now makes sense. The baseline one gives you resistances, and then the precise one gives you max res. But they did nerf that max res, so now irregardless of what level it gets up to, its maximum is going to be 4% max res. That can still probably be multiplied by aura effect, but yeah, auras in general is kind of getting a little bit of a nerf this season. All of the like aura effect supports are kind of getting toned down a little bit. I think they kind of realized that everybody could just slap them in there. There's a ton of damage and ton of survivability. They're also changing all of the defensive like flat auras, so like flat energy shield, flat armor, and flat dodge are now all being changed to be percentage increase. And so you are going to have to go out and get energy shield or armor or dodge on your gear if you want it to actually be there. But they are making crafting a lot more interesting this season in a couple different ways. So number one, they are making slates very different than they have been in the past. Normally it used to be you'd have a limited number of times to craft on a slate, and you kind of like wouldn't have any idea what you're going to get. And it's very RNG. Well, now your slates are going to drop with preset like nodes basically, and you'll be able to roll these a whole bunch of time. And so like on this blue one, you can just roll like infinitely basically on them, whereas I think the legendary ones have a limited amount of times. but you can target a particular talent tree for a particular node if you want. So especially if you're going for like a specific legendary node or a specific, medium node, those are going to be a lot easier for you to get now. And I even see that like you can upgrade to a new god power specifically, which is just very nice quality of life for these. But it also does mean that you're going to be looking out for these different slates a lot more than you have in the past, and that there's going to have a little bit more trading value because you'll find one that has like triple legendary or something like that. And there's a whole bunch of new currencies that go along with this, and like resetting them. And also the shop for them at the NPC vendor has been improved. And so now you're going to be able to go and guarantee buy one that has a legendary. So it's probably gonna be worth to like buy up a whole bunch of them, see if you get something good, and try to sell them. So it's just another way for you to kind of like take stuff that you're getting on the ground and make it into more money for yourself. They're also making it so that legendaries themselves are getting completely kind of redone. So previously legendaries kind of had like a whole ton of stats that didn't really like make any sense, and it kind of made legendaries in general worse than they could be. And they're kind of like riffing off of Last Epoch a little bit with their new system, whereas items can have 1 to 4 kind of legendary crafting stars. And what this allows you to do is just craft mods directly onto them. And you're going to be able to like craft mods on there. You can upgrade these. You can even go and transfer them from one legendary to another if it's the same thing. And it's just going to be really crazy. There's some stuff like where if you corrupt something, you can like slam in the mods from another staff. So if I like corrupt a really good Supreme Throne, I can then put my good crafted Supreme Throne modifiers into the corrupted one or the corroded one. So it's just gonna be really interesting to see where they take this kind of stuff, because legendaries were kind of like not doing so well. They did add in the previous season these kind of like temporary legendaries that you could get, and they got rid of them all. They're no longer in the game. They pretty much were a weaker version of the prototype is what they're called. They're a weaker version of the legendary with like worse mods or less stuff available. And instead of doing that, they're pretty much just making it so that legendaries that have 2 or less like legendary crafting on them are way more likely to drop than they have in the past. So it's gonna be a lot easier for to get this stuff. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I can't wait to craft a 4 legendary crafting eternity. Some items, so legendaries, are not going to have any crafting potential to them in eternity, and like the box and stuff are particular ones that do not have any crafting power to them, simply because they're just so freaking ridiculous. It would only be worse if you could get like 4 additional mods on them. They're also adding a targeted legendary event. This was actually something that was in the season at like the very first day of this past season, but it was like bugged out and causing some issues. So they got rid of it, but it'll allow you to target farm specific legendaries that you're looking for your build, which would be pretty darn cool. Now, some other stuff for crafting, dream crafting, since they are reworking how legendaries kind of work, is not going to work like it did before. You're not going to be able to take any of the legendary powers and put that on to other stuff. So like no more putting sacrifice on 2-handed axes, for example. But you will be able to do 6 of the high roll dreams on an item as opposed to 3 before you run out of juice, and they've gone through and like revamped the mods a little bit to kind of make them more attractive. Likewise, there's some crazy stuff. So if you thought that already this seems like pretty big deal, we got like a new season mech, we got a new class, we've got a whole bunch of crafting changes. Just wait, it gets so much bigger. So they are completely redoing how Endgame like mapping kind of works in the game. And so previously we had these trait cards that you kind of go out and collect in the game. Like you might be familiar with these. As you go through, you go and kind of like build a deck that like adjusts to whatever play style you want. Well, they're completely getting rid of that, and they're adding something that might look familiar if you play Path of Exile, aka big freaking passive trees for basically everything. And so you'll be able to choose what you want to invest in terms of making certain farming methods more powerful. And you can notice right off the bat here at the middle bottom here, it says plan 1. I believe there's going to be like 3 or 4 presets that you'll be able to set up. So if you're like, oh, I really want to farm this particular way today, you can farm that way. Oh, I really want to farm Mistville Eyes, you can target farm that. And you can like switch around between different plans. And supposedly there's some stuff here for the current season mechanic as well. And there's like very big end game talents at the very end, which gives you some like really big buffs as well. And really this is going to completely just shake up the entirety of how the end game is, because on top of that, they're also getting rid of deep space. If you're not familiar with deep space is, basically once you get to time mark 8, you can go at 8-2 and do deep space, which is like a whole ton of extra loot. But typically these are very, very, very expensive beacons, and they're just getting rid of them altogether. They are revamping and redoing how compasses work in the game. And so some of them are going to give you quite a bit of extra loot, but extra difficulty as well. And so they're kind of replacing the deep space with those. On top of that, they're also making it a lot more streamlined for you to get to end game. They're also doing some campaign improvements as well. But in terms of getting to end game, as you're going through the different regions, you will only have to do each region 1 time in order to make it to tier 7, supposedly. So like Glacial Abyss will only have time mark 1 or time mark 7. Lava will have time mark 2 and time mark 7, 3, 4, 5. I don't know where 6 is going. But it's going to be a lot smoother, a lot faster for you to get into like end game farming, which I think is just really awesome. Very good change for sure. Also, small thing for me is that the kind of like the watchers will invade your map and like kind of do a whole bunch of skills, and sometimes that can get like really crazy. There's a lot of stuff going on. Now it's only specific elite monsters that are going to be able to proc that off. Now they're also doing some quality of life updates. Supposedly there's going to be a better UI. We haven't really got to see any information about this yet, but supposedly there's like some stuff coming with that, which maybe we'll have more information before the season comes out. They'll be auto using a different pack spirit setups during like content as you're going through and playing. So if you go and set up your like city or Mistville pack spirit setup, you can tell it to activate this when you go and do that content. So I go and do Mistville, it will activate my Mistville pack spirits. If I'm mapping, it'll have my mapping set up. If I'm doing bossing, I guess I could probably tell it to do my DPS setup. And so it'll be a lot simpler for you to do. Now, if you don't pay for the battle pass, you can still just hotkey and change stuff. This will be a little bit of quality of life. They're also making it so that you can level all the way to 90 and still get free respecs all the way. And I think the big reason they changed that is because your hero trait doesn't fully unlock until level 90 now. And so they want to make sure that you have the ability to, at least try out your full hero trait and get the respecs in there. Auction House is also seeing some improvements. You're going to be able to like update your current listing. There's some other small improvements with that as well. Some more visibility options as well. Like you can make monster skills a little bit less visible or more visible compared to your skills. And just overall, it's looking really freaking good. There's like definitely a lot of buffs and nerfs and changes to a lot of builds. Like I know I've been playing Shadow Swamp Thea this season, and it is getting bug fixed into the ground. So we'll have to kind of figure out what we're going to do this season. I'm not necessarily sure just what yet, but it looks pretty fun. I know that one thing I'm kind of looking forward to is actually they are adding a new cosmetic for the Savage Charge, which looks like a motorcycle. So we might be playing Savage Charge Rayhan again, going through and, just drifting our way through the game and blowing stuff up. Obviously, this is not a very good build setup here, but I think it'd be pretty funny to be driving a motorcycle through the game and blowing monsters up. But come by the stream, ask me any questions you guys have. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below, and we'll see you guys soon.